most of the time, people talk about GPPs. You listen to podcasts, you read the articles. It's all about the picks. It's all about who to play, what the lineup construction, all of that type of shit. But as I said before on the other fucking periscopes, is that you have to weigh things as ranges of outcomes and probabilities, right? You have to weigh that everything is a probability. The probability of having the best lineup, the probability of this guy outperforming his salary, the probability of whatever. And then you weigh everything based on that. Yes, tonight, fucking, Jake Elliott or whatever could kick 17 field goals. What's the probability of that happening? Probably very small, but there is a number on it. What's the probability of him kicking 2? What's the probability of him kicking 3? What's the probability of him kicking 6 field goals and the Eagles scoring 7 touchdowns on their own? Probably combined, even less, or even 3 field goals. You figure how many possessions does a team have? How does Jake Elliott put up 20 DraftKings points, and then Carson Wentz also throws for 5 touchdowns, right? Probably don't go hand in hand. The correlation is probably a higher probability. So everything is in the basis of probabilities. Okay, that's not the secret I wanted to share. And the secret that I'm sharing is not really a secret. It's actually talked about a lot more on golf podcasts, more so than any other podcasts, than the NBA, NFL, whatever. And you hear it mentioned. You hear it mentioned, but not explained as far as further as it could possibly be explained. But it is maybe, especially on short slates, definitely on short slates, but it applies to all slates and all types of games and everything. On the biggest factor of your expected value in a GPP, especially as the top payout gets more grossly exponential, right? The top heavy, like the Millionaire Maker, right? Versus a more flatter payout structure. You could still do the same calculations, but the effects on your decision making change depending on the disparity of that. So I find that a lot of people play top heavy GPPs incorrectly. And they've limited their chance to ever possibly winning it because they're getting into problems by. That's why when you got to play a low owned guy, right? It comes into that ownership realm, but that's not really the reason. The real reason is that you want to increase. You want to compared to the equity that you have in the first place spot, based on the probability of your lineup hitting that spot. That's really the assessment that you're making as a holistic type of thing. So if you're going to play all chalky guys, like their top score exponentially is going to be higher than anything else. But the probability of it being the top one is a slight percentage for it higher, but it'll also be duplicated by a lot of people, right? You always have to take into account duplication. And Ed Miller wrote a extremely, I think maybe one of the best pieces ever written as far as daily fantasy sports about GPPs. It was written in 2015. You could probably search on Google for it. I may link it later on my Twitter about the EV tax, about playing GPPs and the effect of duplication, meaning that you're sharing a lineup with someone or you're playing the same lineup twice, right? Because the payouts are based on, sole ownership of those spots. So the Millionaire Maker, 1 million to the first place prize, but if 2 people have the same lineup and that's first place, they split 1 million in the next spot, which is 150,000. So you end up getting $675,000, but that's not $1 million. So by playing a lineup that duplicated, you lose your top end equity in first place by 40% nearly. Now let's say it's duplicated by 3 people, by 4 people, by 5 people. You've limited your equity in the top spot. Now, if everyone is equal in a contest, so you have to, takes away skill. So if you're in a 100-man contest and everyone's equally skilled, if you ran it out 100 times, you'd have an equal chance, probability-wise, of coming in every spot, right? You'd have a 1% chance of coming in first. You'd have a 1% chance of coming in second. You'd have a 1% chance of coming in third and down in 100th, whatever. If everyone was of equal skill and equal strength of lineup and, putting shit together. Right? As you go up the scale with bigger tournaments with more exponentially top heavy payouts, the probability of putting up the highest score is more important because the payout goes up, right? If you're very good at putting up scores that come in 20th place, you have to gauge your equity based on a 20th place score, right? So if you're playing a contest where first place is $1 million and 20th place is a $1 in a contest with 400,000 entries, like you're only getting and you're paying, if you're paying $10 to get it, you're actually losing money, right? If it's a $10 entry and you come in 20th all the time, like 20th place has to pay X. If it doesn't pay more than $11 or whatever, then is it worth it to play? You might as well play another contest where 20th place pays more than that, percentage-wise on your entry. So if you're playing a $10, 100,000 person contest, and you put up a score that would come in 68th place, and you get $40 for it from a $10 entry, it's quite possible that a $100 contest with 3,000 entries, your lineup comes in 8th place for $1,500, which is 15 times your entry fee, versus one where it's 4 times your entry fee. So that's why the payout structure matters. Of course, you're going to have to spend more money, but I mean, your expected value is better in the higher dollar contest with less amount of entries. Okay? So, duplication. This primarily comes into play when we talk about short slates. 2-game slates, showdown slates, where there's a lot of entries. There's a fuckload of entries, right? 400,000 entries, right? 100,000, whatever the fuck it is, right? The first night of NBA 2-game slate, right? 500,000 entries. Showdown of any type, right? Look how many entries there are, and how many combinations of lineups could there possibly be? Now, there's a lot more than most people think, right? They go, oh, 150 entries, I can make every combination. No, you can't, right? You still can't, not even on a showdown slate with the captain spot there, right? Even if you do the permutation, you'll still have to make at least 1,500, 2,000 lineups in order to encompass I'm going to have one with 3 tight ends, the 3 tight ends on the same team, right? I mean, that type of shit. It's way more than 150. When you play large slates, like 15-game slates, this concept still applies. It's just that the likelihood of your lineup being duplicated by someone else is much, much lower because there's obviously, 15 times as many options, okay? But in any case, in either of those situations, whether it be 15-game slate or a showdown slate, the more that your lineup is duplicated, you have limited your expected value. Right? So you're looking to make lineups in top-heavy payout GPPs that will not be duplicated. Because as it gets more and more duplicated, your equity in the contest goes more and more exponentially down. Okay, so in a showdown slate, if you're playing guys that are all 35% owned, why are you playing the $10 luck box? Right? You're at best, you're going to share it with probably 500 other people, and you're going to get the best possible score. Sure, great, and you get $800 for it. But I thought 250,000 was first place. It's like, yeah, but you're sharing all the other spots also, right? It's better since in equal skill, you will win as often. Like in this contest coming up for tonight's showdown, the Eagles-Giants game. It's a $10 entry. It's 147,058 entries. It's a $1.25 million prize pool. It's a 14.99% rake. And if you do all the factor in, you have a point. One lineup has a 0.000068% equity in the contest. Right? If everything was equal, you'd win that percentage of the time. You come in first. You'd have the best possible lineup. Not saying that it won't be duplicated, but if you played this out 147,058 times, you'll win once. You'll come in second once. You'll come in third once. You'll come, if everyone was equally skilled. So now if we take a look at the payouts, and of course everything is backwards because it's Periscope, and what the fuck am I? Do I change the camera? I don't know. Pay attention. So you have the payout structure here, right? The payout structure first is 250. Second is 100. Third is 50. Fourth is 30. Fifth is 20, and it goes down from there. And here's the payout structure. Now, here's the payouts if you share that place with other people, because in first and second, you share both payout spots. So if you come in second with someone else, you're going to share 350,000. You're going to get 175,000. If you come in you come in first with three other people, you're going to share 400,000. Your share is going to be 133.3K. And you go down from there. So as you see, these numbers if you share it with 20 people, if you're in first place with 20 people, your share is going to be 26,400, which is nearly 10 times less than if you didn't have a duplicated lineup, right? So if you're going to play a lineup that you think is possibly going to be duplicated 20 times, like the max you could win, the max is that number, is 10 times less than what the payout structure is. Now, once we get into past 20, right? Once we get into 100 times, I mean, now this is where we see first place. And it's like, I shared it 228 ways and I got $1,100. Well, you're paying a $10 entry regardless, no matter what. You don't get if you share 20 ways, you don't get 20, the 20th of your money back, right? Of your entry. You're still paying $10 to get in, right? For that one lineup, right? So that could be represented by first place equity. So if you divide the amount of times that you come in first and what you share, how much of a percent of your $10 is wrapped up in first place as part of the 250,000 if you win it. So if you win it by yourself, your first place equity is 17 cents. Okay, it doesn't sound like a lot, but you're looking at it in relative comparison. 17 cents. If you share it with one other person, your equity is now 12 cents. If you share it with three other people, right, first place is 9 cents. If you share it with four other people, your equity is 7.3 cents. Okay, so the difference between 17 and 7.3, that's three times. So the difference of you having a unique lineup and you having a lineup that is only shared by three other people, and you share it four ways, you're making 3 times less equity by just having four people total with your lineup. So imagine you go down even further. If you share it with 8 people, your equity is 4.1 cents, which is nearly 4 times, a little over 4 times less than having it by yourself. If you go down all the way to 20th place, and if you're sharing it 20 ways, your equity is 1.8 cents, okay? Which is like 10 times less than having a unique lineup, okay? So look at that in comparison, that the further you go down and share lineups, and share the place with other people, you get significantly and exponentially less and less equity for the probability of you hitting that lineup, okay? So like if the difference, let's say you have a lineup that is shared by 6 people. That's 5.2 cents. But let's say you have a lineup that is shared by 14 people. Like you go, well, what's the difference between 6 people and 14 people? That's still a lot of money, right? Yeah, but the equity for 14 people is 2.5 cents, which is half of that if it's shared by 8 people, right? And these are just the top 20. We see plenty of times where lineups, I'm not talking about lineups that even win. I'm talking about lineups way down the fucking payout scale that go, that someone's in 568th place, but it's shared 334 times, right? And the 568th place pays what, $20? And then you're sharing that all the way down, so you end up a $10 entry, you get $12, right? Because you had a lineup that was shared by 334 other fucking people, right? Even if you got first place, your first place top possible payout was probably like $700 goddamn dollars, right? So why if you're going to play lineups that are going to be heavily duplicated, you might as well take that lineup and play a smaller field contest or a flatter payout structure, because you're not going to be penalized in what Ed Miller calls the EV tax for having the duplicated lineup. Now, is it possible to have a lineup that is completely unique in these contests? We've seen it happen, right? You see, right? Or 1 or 2, right? 1 or 2 or something like it's possible. A lot of times it involves like weird guys or something, right? But it's possible. So if you have this doesn't mean like on tonight's slate, I'm going to play Latimer and Simonson and the 2 kickers and a defense, and like I'm going to play like all 2% owned guys and leave 40,000 on the table. It's like, well, you're going to be unique, but the probability of that putting up a high score to be first and unique is probably low. High probability of being unique, but very low probability of being like the top fucking score, right? No quarterbacks, no running backs, no top wide receivers. Now you're playing guys that have 2 snaps or whatever, right? So you have to weigh that. The probability of your lineup being the top possible score versus the probability of your lineup being unique enough that your equity is worth playing the fucking contest. Okay? And that's why I made even a little fucking chart, right? As your probability goes up, right? Your equity goes down. So if you're going to play a lineup that has a low probability of being the top score, you only need this amount of equity. Right? If you're going to play a lineup that's heavily probable to be the top, you need an absurd amount of equity, right? Because the times that you win very little, right? And the times that you don't win, you get nothing too often, where that time that you won, right? That 0.00068% of the time that you win, you've only won $1,000, not 250, not 250,000. But although the low probability lineups, right, that you're like, but maybe not to the absurd extent, but the lineups where I played Aldrick Robinson, right? Or you play a weird guy you play Traquan Smith in the captain spot, right? And you're like, oh, this lineup's only duplicated 7 times. It's like, okay, let me take a look at my chart. It's like, how much equity do I need? What do I think the probability of that lineup being the top possible score? Does that make sense for the GPP that I'm playing? So it doesn't mean that you take low guys and leave 20,000 on the table, unless you think that that's a high probability, that's a high enough probability. And the probability could be really low. Your goal is not to win tonight. What is the most probability tonight? It's like, if you played this out 1,000,000 times, you're going to win once, right? And although the low probability time that you do win that one time, you get paid $250,000. You get paid one of these. It's only duplicated 3 times. It's only duplicated 5 times. You don't want to have it so that you lose $10 fucking 1,000 times, and then you finally win once, and it's for fucking $800, right? Because then you lose in the long run, right? You spend $10, you lose. You spend $10, you lose. You spend $10, I've spent $5,000 trying to win, and when you win, since you played a lineup that is so heavily duplicated, your winnings is 2,000. I spent 5,000 total to win 2,000 once. Well, you're down. You're down. Your ROI is negative. It's negative. So even though you may be playing lineups that have a lower chance of possibly winning, the times that it does win, you win fucking $100,000. You win $50,000. You win something like that. It may not never happen for you, right? The long run, it may never fucking get there, right? But from a mathematical perspective, you'd rather play a lineup that has a 1% chance of being the top scorer, but when it does, it pays $100,000, than playing a lineup that has a 20% chance of having a top score and only gives you $200, right? That's the point that I'm making. That's what this little fucking chart is, right? So when you're playing Showdown, when you're playing 2-game slates, 2-game NBA slates or whatever like that, if you're going to play top-heavy GPPs with very big fields, doesn't mean you have to play fucking just the 12th guy on the bench and have all of those guys in. But you have to assess that, well, your cash lineup is probably going to be duplicated fucking 7,000 times. So it's not worth it to play. Little fucking chart, LOL. Yeah, I do my doodles. These are my doodles. So that's what people, very little gets talked about. In golf, it does a lot. In small field events in golf, leave 300 at the table, whatever. It's this concept, right? You're not optimizing for the likelihood of you winning. You're optimizing for the highest expected value, the highest return on investment. It may be psychologically good to go, I'm just going to make the best lineup. I don't care if it's chalk, and if it's tied 1,200 ways, I could say to myself that I won. Yeah, but you won $600, right? Great, you did it. You won $600. But actually, if you played that over a fucking 1,000 times, you actually lose money in the long run. You have a negative expected value in the long run. I have no problem. That's why when I play Showdown slates, I don't play Showdown cash. I play like 20 lineups, right? I'll play the $10 luck box. I'll play my 20 lineups, and I'm taking a stance. I'm playing this guy. I'm playing Aldrick Robinson in half my lineups, and because I think he's going to be 2 to 3% owned, I want to give myself as many outs. Obviously, I'm going to pair him with the quarterback because that's a correlation, and then just if it happens, I have a good shot of not having a duplicated lineup. And that night that I had a duplicated lineup of what? It was duplicated 9 ways or something like that for 50,000+. But I mean, it doesn't have to be one unique way. It's just like this lineup, the way it is, like I think it'll be duplicated a limited amount of time, not once. I'd love for it once, but I don't know what's in the heads of other fucking people. But I just take a look at the slate. I take a look at tonight's slate and go, who do I want in the captain? Who can I get over like that? And if I go through and I go, well, I'm going to play OBJ and I'm going to play Ertz and I'm going to play Shepard and I'm going to play both quarterbacks or, like some type of lineup. I look at this and I go, if this is the best possible lineup, it's going to be duplicated fucking God knows how many times, right? Yeah, then I'll play 50-50 with it, right? Then play a double up with that. You don't get penalized EV wise on if you come in first or you come in 50th in 100-man fucking 50-50. Yeah, you played in that. You'll get a higher expected value of that same lineup in a different contest. But in a top heavy GPP, right? Even if that's technically the highest probability of being the top scorer, it's going to be duplicated 1,500 times. Right? Because everyone's going to see that's most likely. It's going to be something. Instead of Jeffrey, it's Aguilar. Instead of I'm not looking to, I'm going to play Rhett Ellison and Simonson and not with Manning. So it doesn't, if they both count touchdowns, I don't even get those fucking points, right? Yeah, it's most probably going to be a unique lineup, but the likelihood of it being the top possible score because I've non-correlated shit and I put guys that cannibalize each other on it for their upside, like it's going to be way too low that I'd rather play a lineup that is going to be duplicated 5 times than play that lineup which won't be duplicated, right? But I'd rather play a lineup that's going to be duplicated 5 times than a lineup that's going to be duplicated 18 times. Doesn't sound like much of a difference, but the difference between 5 and 18 on today's contest, 5 duplicated 5 times, you have an equity of 6.1 cents. 18 times, you have an equity of 2 cents. Okay? That's 2.5 times, right? That's 2.5 times your equity by playing the lineup that it doesn't look as good, but will only be duplicated 5 times, rather than the one that'll be duplicated 18 times. So I'm even talking about the small numbers. There are a lot of times in these showdowns when you zero them out and whatever, you're playing lineups that are duplicated 1,700 times. They may not ever show up first. Sometimes they don't show up first. Sometimes you see them in the middle of the pack, right? A lineup that's duplicated fucking 700 times. And different lineups that are duplicated 58 times. With this, like, instead of Clement, it's Smallwood. And now it's instead of 172 times, it's 58 times. But then the difference between 172 and 58 actually is quite small because 58 is fucking nothing anyway. Right? So there you go. There's some fucking math lesson. I did in the chats and whatever, people talk about who you got in the captain spot or whatever. This matters more than that. On short slates, right? I look at what the quote optimal lineup is and go, there's no way that I'm the only one on this. Right? I'll play this in a double up, sure, but I'm not fucking paying $10 for the $10 luck box on DraftKings. It's a waste of money. It's a fucking waste of money. So go into the $10 luck box and you make your weird lineups. You make lineups that are less likely to be duplicated because the payout is worth it. If you're going, I'm gonna play the chalkiest guy as possible, to play another contest. Perfectly fine to do that, just not in that contest type, not in that payout structure, not in that field size. You're playing a $33 400-man contest. Yeah, then the likelihood of it being duplicated is lower because there's only 400 fucking people, only 400 fucking lineups. Less likelihood to be fucking duplicated. This contest tonight is 147,000 fucking entries. And how many players can there be? I mean, there's only so many combinations that it could be. I'm going to play this defense and this kicker and then this quarterback and whatever. If that's only going to be, if I knew beforehand how many times a lineup will be duplicated, that would be more important information than what happens in the game, right? If you gave me a choice on, I could tell you how many yards Carson Wentz will throw for, or how many times every combination of every possible lineup is going to be duplicated in this contest. I'll take the second one. The second one is going to matter more to me for my ROI than the first one. Then if Carson Wentz is going to throw for 3 touchdowns and 350 yards. Because then I still have to figure out who he's throwing to. Is it worth playing? And maybe Manning throws for 500 yards. So, I mean, that in and of itself doesn't matter. The duplicated lineups, that matters a lot more. If I put shit together and I go, wow, this Smallwood OBJ lineup is going to be duplicated 334 times. Like, I make sure not to play it, right? I look at the lineups that are going to be the least amount of duplicated, and I'll just play those. Don't even tell me who the fucking players are, right? If you're able to predict the future and tell me how many times each potential combination, a possible combination of lineup they could be in, what I would do is I would take that data, throw it into a spreadsheet or something like that, and then start going through starting at one of this unique lineup and looking and going, wow, this includes backups and shit, and this is only going to score 12 points, possibly. And I cross it out and I start going down. And once I see some reasonable lineup, then I'm like, okay, this is only going to be duplicated 3 times. I'm playing that lineup. I haven't even mentioned the fucking players. Right, I just wanted, okay, now I see what the player, they're playing this quarter, and that ain't a bad idea. But even if I go all the way down and see a lineup that's like, that looks like a really good lineup, but if it's going to be duplicated 160 times, I just don't play it. I'll play 20 lineups, and I'll play the ones that are going to be the least duplicated, that have a somewhat enough of a probability of being the top lineup. So there you go. That's the concept. That's the thing that virtually no one talks about. Or they talk about it, but in a different context. It's this concept, but, they're kind of talking about it. They're talking about, like, the ownership leverage, and they're talking about the being unique in golf, right? Leaving money on the table, right? There's going to be a lot of overlap, right? It all comes down to, like, you want to increase your expected value by not having a duplicated lineup. This is the same reason why playing a train in a GPP, you sacrifice expected value. Even if you have both of the duplicated lineups.